hear me all right? We good? Okay, all right. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a dry throat this morning. Excuse me for a minute. All right, so last week, if you remember, we talked about holding on to our faith, keeping it. Don't let it go. Don't let it go. But the question is that all we do? Is that all we have to do? Just hold on to it? That's all we have to do, right? Hold on to it. Take it out when we need it. We have a big faith. All we got to do, pull it out of our pocket when we need it, right? Pull it out of our pocket, use it when God takes care of us, fold it back up and stick it in our pocket. Is that what we do? I think the answer is no. So the question is, what is faith? What is faith? Well, we can read the definition in Hebrews 11:1. See if we have that up there. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's something that we can't wrap our brain around. The world doesn't follow it. How can we believe and follow something that's incomprehensible, inaudible? It makes us expect the impossible, but yet that's exactly what we're told to do. Kind of backwards from what the world tells us to do. So, again, do we just sit on our faith, put it in our pocket until we need it, and then we practice it? As we've shown, the answer is no. It needs to be built on. It needs to be practiced. It needs to be strengthened every day. Yes, God wants us to possess faith, but He wants us to practice it, to use it. If we read in James 2:26, faith without works is dead. Just that verse alone tells us it's not just something to pull out of my pocket. It takes work. Faith involves us doing something. We have to do something on our part. I'm going to take a look at Luke 6:46. Because the Lord's going to ask, He says, well, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do the things which I say? And I think one of the things He says is, work at your faith. Don't just stick it in your pocket and pull it out when you need me. It doesn't work that way. We have to practice our faith. A doctor practices medicine. Attorney practices the law. Construction people practice building homes or what buildings. Christians must practice their faith. It's not a one and done. We need to live it out. We need to perform and to apply and rehearse it and act upon it. The favorite part of that definition for me is to live it out. We need to live our faith. So how do we practice and live out our faith? How do we do it? I've said we can't just pull it out of our pockets, so what do? First step, faith is a worshiping faith. It must be a worshiping faith. If we look at Hebrews 11:4, it says, by faith, Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous. God testified of his gifts, and though he being dead, it still speaks. Abel has been dead a long time, hasn't he? But his faith still speaks to us. It wasn't enough for him to say he believed in God. He put his faith into action, didn't he? Remember what he did? He put his faith into action no matter what the cost. Worship, folks. Worship, that's what God's seeking. Hebrews 11:6. Let's take a look at that. But without faith, it's impossible to please Him. Did you catch that? For he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. Seek Him, worship Him, Abel lived out that faith that he had in God, didn't he? He didn't just talk about it. I think today there's many in America that call themselves Christians, aren't there? They just throw that around anymore. But how many of them, what percentage of them are really putting their faith in God into action? What do you think? Probably not, I hate to say it, but probably not many, right? They're calling themselves Christians, but they're depending on themselves. And then we're going to go back to James again. Faith without action is dead. Sadly, could that describe a lot of our churches today? Are they putting their faith into action, or are they listening to the person standing up here and going by what they tell them to do? Faith without works is dead. All over America today, there are a lot of churches holding services, and millions of them are attending them and calling them worship services, right? But how many of them are dead? How many of those churches are dead because they're not worshiping? Again, I'm just going to keep hammering it home. Faith without works is dead. They call themselves Christians, but they're not. It's easy to worship when things are going great, isn't it? Man, I just got a promotion, got a big raise, got that new car. But what do we do when God turns off the bank account? When we get sick? When we've lost our job? Do we still give God the worship? Do we still have the faith in Him? Or do we say, oh, woe is me. I took out my faith note, it didn't happen. Well, what do you think? Really? We turn it over to Him. But it's easier to do when everything's coming up roses, to use the old saying, but when things are going bad, not so much. I want you to think back to Abel. He gave his best lamb. He gave his best lamb, not worrying about what he would have left after that, did he? He gave the best he had and didn't worry about it. He had the faith in God that allowed him to give his absolute best and sleep well at night. Do we have that kind of faith in God? Do we? Or do we just like to talk about it? Tough question, isn't it? But it's something we need to look at. We need to live a life of faith that worships God no matter what. Good times, bad times, prosperity, poor, it doesn't matter. The next step we need to look at, we need to have a walking faith. If we look at Hebrews 11:5, we will see, by faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For before was taken, he had this testimony that he pleased God. But without faith it's impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Enoch pleased God with his walk, did he? He walked his everyday walk with God. Catch that? His everyday walk. We talked about that a little bit in Sunday school. He walked his everyday walk. We think, well, God's got the whole world to run. He's not going to worry about my car battery going dead. He's not going to worry about this, that, and the other. We walk our everyday life with God. So do we do that? Or do we trust in ourselves and once again, when things get bad, pull that out of the pocket? Walking has to do with the way we live our life. We need to have faith when it's sunshiny, faith when it's pouring down rain, which it's not now, faith in the rain, faith in comfort or pain, faith during the day, faith during the night. It doesn't go away. We have to maintain it. So when people hear you talk about your faith, is that all they see and perceive and hear is just the talk? No, Ray always talks about his faith, but do they see you walking the walk? Or are you just talking the talk? Does God see you walking the walk? There's the big one. Does God see you walking the walk? You're not going to fool him. You're not going to pull the wool over his eyes. Not going to happen. He knows, and I'll be honest with you, there are probably a lot of people that see the same thing. Maybe your spouse, maybe your children. Oh, Dad talks about this, that, and the other, but then I saw him going off with his buddies Friday night to just, have a... You can't fool God, and I'm guessing a lot of times you can't fool other people, especially your family. They're going to watch. They're going to watch. You probably are not going to fool other people. Let me read James 2:14 through 17. What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute, and one of you says to them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed, what does it profit? Does not practicing your faith profit you? No. It doesn't profit anyone else. They see you going by and just going about your business, but you're not practicing your faith. I love this quote I saw from I don't know, it was from a child in a Sunday school class and talking about walking faith. Remember, this is from a little child. Enoch went walking with God one day, and they walked so far, God said, Enoch, you just come on home with me. You've gone too far from your house. How far are we willing to go home with God and walk away from our house if we need to? I like that little quote. Sometimes just a little child comes up with a quote that is just amazing. Walking daily, all the time in our faith. The next step, it needs to be a working faith. A working faith. But people don't think faith is work, is it not? We've been told that. Faith without works is dead. We look at Hebrews 11:7. By faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen. Did you catch that part? There's first part of it. Divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to his faith. Noah put his faith to work, didn't he? Put it into action. You want me to do what? And build it where? In the middle of the desert, right? I'm going to build an ark in the middle of a desert. Okay. God asked him to build an ark out in the middle of a desert. But did Noah question it? Or did he just put his work gloves on and jump right in and go to work? He went to work. His faith in God didn't waver, even though it would have been easy to say, God, you got to be kidding me. I'm not building this big old boat in the middle of a desert. He didn't do that. He didn't waver. He believed in God enough to put his work clothes on and get to work. Now, I want to put this in perspective to realize how much he did. It was no weekend project. Put up a shed that you bought over, and stick in your backyard. Be done in an hour. This ark was 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Just wrap your head around the size of that for a minute. That is huge. And I tried to find this, and I couldn't find any definitive answer how long it took him to do this. I researched some scholars that, using time frames and timelines and things that were kind of beyond me. But the best estimate I could find is most scholars say it took anywhere from 55 to 75 years to build that. People may have the idea, him and his buddies put that ark up over the weekend. 55 to 75 years to build something out in the middle of a desert where it never rains. That's a working faith, folks. Are we willing to work on something that long and wait that long and just trust that at the end God will bring it all together? Think about it. Are we working? Are we continuing on? And will we faithfully endure until the end, no matter what he tells us to do, and have the faith to get through it? 50, 75, 100 years. And finally, we need a willing faith. A willing faith. We look at Hebrews 11:8. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. Seems to be a recurring theme. Noah's building an ark in a desert, doesn't know why. Abraham went out because God told him to go, and he didn't have any idea where he was going. Would we do that? Or do we want that GPS? We want that destination. How long from here to there? And I don't even know where I'm going, and I'm just supposed to go. God called Abraham, and he went not knowing where he was going, but he went anyway. God tested Abraham to see if he was willing to go. Willing to go. Are we willing to go? Having been, I'll just share with you, most of you know I was on the mission field for a while. Of course, I wasn't praying. I had a certain specific place I was going, and God said, no, you're going to Haiti. I don't want to. Wrong thing to say. How many times does God want us to go somewhere? Either we don't know where we're going, or he's sending us somewhere we're like, no, it's really not where I want to go. I'm going to go where? We have to be willing to go. Now beyond that, we need to read in Hebrews 11:17. By faith, when he was tested, or by faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son. Let me wrap that around any of the moms and dads in here today. God comes and asks you to offer up your only child. Where's your thought? Where's your thought process? Talk about a huge test of faith. How many of us would go ahead and go along with that? Be tough, wouldn't it? But Abraham was willing to offer his only son. He was willing to offer his only son. Abraham was willing to put his faith into action, even at a considerable sacrifice. Offer up your son to me. Are we willing to obey? Are we willing to put our faith into action, no matter the cost? That's the tough part. Something easy, yeah, I can do that, but when it hits home, we need a willing sacrifice that sacrifices to God no matter what he asks, no matter where he sends us, no matter what he wants us to do. A willing faith that sacrifices to God, it determines God's power, it discovers God's solutions, it defines our prayer life, it directs our future, and it delivers God's miracles. We need to remember. So what are we doing? Worshiping, walking, working, and willing? Or are we dependent on this? That's the question I want to leave you with today. Are you worshiping, walking, working, and willing, no matter what, by faith? Or is this what we're dependent on?